Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Bechet, and this is the AAF Exchange, a podcast from the American Action Forum, where experts provide clear, data-driven insights into today's economic and domestic policy issues. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. On this episode of the AAF Exchange, the latest tariff smackdown, global economic uncertainty, and Congress's to-do list. Joining us to break all this down is AAF President Douglas Holtz-Eakin. Doug, thanks for joining us.
It is always a pleasure.
So as always, there's always something on your mind before we get into the topic today. So what's on your mind?
Gas tax holidays. I cannot believe this idea is back. This is a terrible idea. And for those listeners who don't know this, fun fact, when I was the policy director on the McCain campaign, then candidate John McCain proposed a gas tax holiday in the summer of 2008. I had to defend it the length and breadth of this fine nation, and I hated it. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Prices are high, and so you have a gas tax holiday. Does that produce one more ounce of supply? No. Does it reduce 1 ounce of demand? No. Do temporary policies change fundamental incentives? No. All it probably does is stick a little extra money in the pocket of the gasoline supply chain. And if that's your policy goal in the middle of a crisis, have at it.
Yeah.
But, here we are again.
Yeah, I mean, it's basic economics. You have supply and demand on that's how you determine prices. I mean, in a lot of ways.
And the demand's super inelastic.
Yeah.
I mean, so you've got, you know where your job is, you know what your commute is, you know what your car is. It's just not that easy to change in a substantial fashion. So it's really inelastic. The best case you can make for it is supply is also pretty inelastic in the short run. So maybe it gets split. So instead of 18.4 cents, the supply guys get 9 cents and demand gets 9 cents. Gas went up $1.40. This is nothing.
Yeah.
It's just something they can talk about. They're never going to do it. It's a bad idea, but they'll talk about it.
Yeah, I was just home in Vermont, and it's getting really expensive. It's like for
that's a completely different issue.
Which
That's
I understand.
true. That is
I
a true
understand
fact.
the issue, but again, but people, it's not going to change anything in that. But I do like that you came on and used your "What's on Your Mind" section to do your penance for your year.
I've been atoning for that for 20 years. Okay. Jeez.
All right, we'll let you off the hook then.
Okay.
For now.
Moving on.
So this week, a trade court has struck down a portion of President Trump's latest tariff regime.
Yes.
What happened, and what could the impact be?
So when the original tariffs got struck down by the Supreme Court, he went to Section 122 tariffs at a 10% rate across the board. And Section 122 says that to address a balance of payments emergency, you can do this. And immediately people sued, and the court ruled that we're not in a balance of payments emergency, so you don't have the authority to impose these tariffs, and they're gone. And they didn't, I think, stop collection of them, so they could have done that. Mm-hmm. So they're still out there, and this will get appealed, and we'll probably end up at the Supreme Court. And in the end, they'll probably strike it down, and they'll have to give the money back. So that we've seen this movie before. In the interim, what's going to happen is they're doing these so-called Section 301 cases against 60-odd countries, and you'll be shocked to learn that I believe they're going to find in favor of trade damage and that they're going to impose tariffs. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just don't see
Spoiler alert,
the Commerce Secretary deciding, no, it's all fine. Or USTR going, hey, we're good. So forget it. This is... And so that's the real tariff regime, and no one's questioning their ability to use 301. So that's what we're going to end up with.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Jacob is, I think, writing his shipment today about it and said, yes, the court did strike it down, but the higher court put a pause on their striking it down. So it's going through the legal loopholes, and I imagine.
I have a deep fantasy life, and so I thought maybe, just maybe, they would say, okay, he doesn't have the authority to do this, and you have to stop collecting.
Yeah.
Then let the appeals go forward, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. So right now there's not a lot of economic impact with this case in itself, and there's companies are probably watching it and saying, well, we're still going to have to.
Well, and for any business horizon over 6 months, you're looking at what comes out of the 301s.
Yeah.
And that's going to be everything.
Interesting. Okay. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yes.
All right. So another thing, event happening in the world this week. President Trump is in China.
Yes.
What are the economic goals of this summit, and what have we learned so far?
So when the summit was originally envisioned, it was only economics that was supposed to be on the table. And in the interim, remember this got delayed once as well.
Right.
In the interim, we've had some geopolitics rear their ugly head. And so President Trump wants the Chinese to weigh in with Iran on opening the Strait of Hormuz and shutting down the nuclear program. The question is, what is he going to have to offer them in order to get them to do that? And so a bit to my surprise, not entirely, but a bit to my surprise, right away, the first thing Xi said was the most important thing is Taiwan. And if the U.S. doesn't handle Taiwan carefully, we could have some clashes or even conflicts. And okay. So that was sort of a shot across the bow. And I don't think there's anything that would be supported back in the U.S. in the way of notifying China of arms sales to Taiwan. That's one thing that's been mentioned, or literally walking away from Taiwan in a significant fashion. So if you take that off the table, what's left? Well, there's a bunch of commercial transactions. Mm-hmm. They buy more Boeing stuff. They buy more energy from us. They buy more agricultural output. All that will probably get. That was sort of the original thing. And we'll see that. I think the thing that China probably wants the most from the U.S. would be AI chips. And they've gotten the second generation NVIDIA chips. Will Trump cut a deal for more recent missions? And they made a point of picking up NVIDIA's CEO Huang on the way.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. I will find that out. But I don't think any of that adds up to them telling a client state like Iran, stand down.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're going to see in the end, other than some commercial transactions.
Yeah, there hasn't been much that came out of the summit yet, so we'll have to keep an eye on the economic outcomes of that at least.
We're at the rumor mill stage at the moment.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like there's a fundamental rethinking of the trade relationship. Like we'll get rid of all the tariffs or something like that.
Yeah.
We're we're stuck with the post-tariff rearrangement.
Just as a reminder, where are we at with tariffs on China? In terms of what percentage are we at?
So they have a whole bunch of weird legacy things. They have a 301 from his first term that's still out there, and then they had the AIPA tariffs, which he had over 100% at one point. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
So they're gone, and I think we're back to 25%
on them.
I won't swear to that.
Yeah, we'll have to.
I might actually
have to check with Jacob on that. And then
imagine if you're a small business.
Yeah,
like you're trying to keep track. No one knows. It's just hard to keep track of where you are.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time with regulations. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like with small businesses having to keep up with these tariff news as well. So
the de minimis thing, there's been no explicit move on that front, but if there's no tariff, the AIPA tariff's gone, you can't have a de minimis exception to a tariff that doesn't exist. So that went along with it.
All right. All right. On that note, speaking of geopolitical hot button issues, the situation in Iran continues to affect the global economy.
Yep.
What's the latest developments there?
More of the same, which is actually the bad news. I think from a global economic output point of view, every day that it goes on takes a bigger toll on the global economy. That's clear. The oil price hikes are damaging to importing countries. That's what the U.S. used to be. Then we'd have a big oil price increase, and it was a trigger for a recession. We've also got the natural gas shortages in Asia. Natural gas falls into essentially three markets, not well connected. Europe, Asia, and the North American continent. So the Asian ones relied extensively, and so they got problems. All that's slowing global growth. The initial estimates relied on the war being short. Now I think people are rethinking that, see what happens. On the inflation front, if you see an oil price spike and then it goes back down, the Fed can ignore it because you get a little inflation, then you get deflation, and you average it out. Now, do you worry about the higher prices on a sustained basis and lean against that, or do you worry about the slowdown in the economy? You know, we're growing at basically 1.25% over the past couple of quarters. That's slow enough that, you know, a big shock is bad news. I think, you know, we've been through the labor market a million times. The labor market got some big jobs numbers, but everything else still looks pretty dicey to me.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, it's a very unsettled period, and longer is bad.
Good luck to our new chairman of the Fed.
Yes. I mean, seriously, a handoff from one chairman to the next is never exactly easy. I mean, there's always differences in style, management styles, all that stuff, plus the fundamentals. Like, what do you believe about the outlook, and where are you trying to herd people to? Like, the chair has a big influence. Right. Going from Powell to Warsh is going to be, in and of itself, complicated. Now you've got the layer on top of it, which is domestic politics, which is the president beating on the Fed chair all the time, and then you've got the international part. It's a you know, did you really want this job, Kevin?
Yeah, right. I certainly would not want this job, but I'm also not an economist, so I probably would never be up for this job. So,
yeah, you know, I think, you know, at different points in my career, and I think other people are the same way. You think, I wonder if I could be Secretary of the Treasury, or what if I could be Fed chair? And I've always thought about it and thought, I don't want to be Fed chair. I really don't. No thanks.
All right, so that takes us through our first half of the podcast, so let's do a trivia question.
Okay.
When complete, approximately how much will the total IEEPA tariff refunds be?
166 billion.
Wow, right on the money.
Yeah,
nicely done. I figured that was a good one for this podcast since we were talking about tariffs. But yeah, I mean that is a
that's real money.
Yeah. So this is basically like this is just companies going back after the IEEPA tariffs that the Supreme Court struck down
for reasons that I can't wrap my head around. This is more complicated than I think it should be. I mean, they paid the tariffs.
Yeah.
Presumably they didn't write a check and walk down to the Commerce Department and hand it to them, right?
Yeah.
They did an electronic transfer, and they have a record of the account from and the account to. And I don't understand why you can't just hit reverse.
Yeah.
And do an electronic transfer from the Treasury to these people. It takes about a minute and a half, and they get their money back. But that's not what's going on.
Yeah. Job creation for accountants, I guess. But, I mean, yeah, what's really begs the question is how are small businesses dealing with that?
Poorly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what you hear, word on the street, there's no data, is, you know, it's really cumbersome. It's hard to document that you have a legitimate claim. I don't understand why any of this is hard to document. There's records. The money was paid.
Yeah.
I mean, the books get audited. Every one of those companies has books. They must show it. I sure hope we can keep track of what's coming into the federal government.
Yeah.
I just really don't understand this.
It should be simple, you're right, but like everything, we have to complicate it to the nth degree.
I guess.
All right, let's turn to domestic politics, Congress. Even in an election year, lawmakers have a pretty long to-do list of items that they want to get done. Most notably...
Want to or have to?
Have to, and there's a couple of want tos in there.
I'm with you.
Ensuring, so the most important one, of course, is ensuring the government stays funded.
Why do you raise that? That could never happen.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So where are we in the appropriations process?
So here we go again. We are now trying to do appropriations for most of the government for fiscal year 2027, which would begin October 1st. We have made precious little progress on anything in both houses of Congress. Nothing's passed, that's for sure. So we have no approps done. And that's not unusual now. They're way behind. And you start to think, there's going to be a continuing resolution. The ICE portions of Homeland Security, are politically contentious, and so they're trying to carve that piece out, fund that through the reconciliation process, and leave the approach process to do the rest. So we have this two-part approach process. They'll probably do the reconciliation. That looks like it's on track. And then the rest, we'll have a big CR come October. Yeah, so I mean, I know we're in the posturing stages of all this, but we're going through the congressional hearings right now. Oh yeah, and it seems about the president's budget. Yeah, and, pretty far apart on a lot of these things. Well, even defense spending, which usually seems to be a little bit more contentious this time around. A 50% increase is a big increase. Yeah, $1.5 trillion in the defense budget, big money. Yeah. So, I'm not surprised that that's contentious. How it all plays out is hard to see. They've talked about having a supplemental for the defense budget, so you could have the approps cover the CR and get up to $1.5 trillion using a supplemental, but I don't think that's a lock, right? So stay tuned. Yeah. So you kind of stole my thunder on the reconciliation, but they're also, of course, moving forward with the second package. Yep. To fund CPB and ICE. Where does that process stand? It's in the Senate right now. They've written the bill. They've I think they've passed it out of committee or marked it up, but so it's pretty clean, and I don't think there's any great disagreements. Right? They've done the budget resolution. They've done the bill. They haven't voted it out on the floor yet, but they will. Yeah. House is beginning this process. On party line votes. They'll coalesce and get it done. So I think that's the deadline the president set was June 1st. They might even make the June 1st deadline. Doesn't look like it's going to be that complicated. So this seems much easier than the last time. It's really targeted. It's because it's so. The usual problem with these reconciliation bills, the way they've evolved, is the question is what's in and what's out. And since this is so narrowly focused, they just can't develop a disagreement. They're talented people. But just not yet. Don't jinx it. They can do it. Now they're talking about a third reconciliation bill. Now that would run into the Christmas tree problem. Yeah, that is a purely political proposition. We need to pass another one. It will be just with Republican votes. We'll put it into stuff that people will like. We will get political favor for that. That'll help us in the midterms. There's no pretense about it. That's exactly why they're talking about it. But then you have to answer the question, well, what is it that Republicans can agree on that will give them political favor in November? And it's not obvious that there's an agreement on that. And so you're going to put health care in there? You're not? You're going to have a tax cut? I'll be surprised if that one gets done. Yeah. It seems unlikely, and you would know better than I do, but... maybe not. Fair enough. All right, so those are the need-to-dos. Some of the wants that they are out there. They have one more need-to. They have one more need. Yes, sorry. And that's FISA reauthorization. Remember? Oh, yes, FISA's still out there. They kicked it 20 days, I think it was. So they're going to have to... And there's a large disagreement between House Republicans and Senate Republicans on this, where... It doesn't seem like they're on the same page at all. If you talk to the intelligence community, this is a must-have. Yeah. Cannot let the authorization lapse. If you talk to the House and Senate, it's they can have what I like. Yeah. And they don't agree. And so, this has always been difficult, these FISA reauthorizations. This is a deep disagreement among people on the degree to which you can do this kind of surveillance without a warrant. Yeah. That's the sort of the big line. And, it's just unresolved. And the thing is, it stops progress on everything else. It just gums up the work. It gums up the pipeline. All right, so there's also these want-tos. President Trump threw his support behind a Senate-passed affordable housing bill. What would this legislation actually do? Precious little. Yeah. I had a feeling. That's the short version. It would, give incentives to minimize permitting delays and zoning restrictions. It would, sort of niggle at the edges on financing issues, but it's not. There's nothing, no lever that the federal government can pull that's going to have a dramatic impact on near-term affordability in the housing. That's just the reality of it.
I remember back, I think it was during the election, we were talking about this, and the events that would have to happen to make the housing market more affordable were just absolute,
They remember they were going to have a big housing initiative, and they're going to have a summit, and it was going and I think the president just concluded, wait, this is a loser. There's nothing I can do, and we'll get all the blame if we don't succeed. Yeah, and I think that was not incorrect. So
the other bill that's sort of making its way through the congressional process is the Clarity Act, which would set up a regulatory framework for digital assets.
Yes.
What impact could that have?
This has to happen. I mean, there has to be an established, understood, predictable regime for regulating. First of all, just classifying digital assets. Like, is this the moral equivalent of a security, or is it a forward contract? Is it a futures contract? What is this animal? So you have to have a way to sort them into the right pile, so that if they fall under the digital version of the SEC or whatever. Right. CFTC, take your pick. So this has to happen. Digital assets are the future. There's no question about it. How we get there is the important question, and this is an important stepping stone, having a framework. There are all sorts of little things that are getting in the way. The House and Senate can't get on the same page. One, this, along with the housing bill, believe it or not, contains this poison pill, which is a ban on a central bank digital currency. The Fed can't have one. The House doesn't want the Fed to have that ability. So that the Senate disagrees. They want it out of that. They want it out of the digital assets bill, Clarity bill. So that's one. The other is this issue of stable coins. Stable coins are 100% backed by treasuries, so they're and that was done deliberately to make them safe. Like there's dollars backing it. That gives them a stable value. They can be used for digital transactions as a result. This is an attempt to make it a digital money that's widely accepted. Money in the old-fashioned world is things like bills, which are obsolete, checking accounts, which are not, and other deposit accounts. And those deposit accounts often pay interest. And the banks, and especially, don't want the stablecoin issuers to be able to pay interest on the stablecoin, because they're looking, their fear is a big deposit exit over to the stablecoins. And so how you write the ban on stablecoins paying interest is the issue. Because it was in the original legislation for stablecoins, they said you can't pay interest. And so they awarded prizes and, all sorts of things that just reminded me, we're learning the same lessons. Like when checking accounts in my youth, when the banks had interest rate caps and stuff like that, you got toasters for opening checking accounts, and it's just ways to in kind pay the interest.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it really does seem like.
So, do you want a toaster?
No, thank you. I have enough. I mean, like you said at the beginning, this needs to happen. We're in sort of the wild west of this digital asset, and there needs to be a framework, but it's just getting to yes and a solid yes that won't.
And I'm quite curious. I mean, just this is not my area of expertise, but to my eye, a lot of these digital assets are junk. And once the framework's established, how many are going to survive? I mean, what will that world actually look like?
That'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll keep an eye on all that. But Doug, thanks for joining us today. I won't keep you any longer. I know you got a busy day.
Always fun. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Tune back in for our next episode, where our experts will provide clear, data-driven insights into today's economic and domestic issues. I'd also encourage you to check out any of the links in our show notes, and also follow us on social media to learn more about AAF. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play.